Hello there and welcome to quite a morbid video, quite a dark video compared to my other videos, especially my lost media videos, whereas other lost media videos I've often talked about TV shows. This one is talking about historic events, and I, being quite a history buff myself, I do enjoy history a lot, and 9/11 is an event which I have been fascinated with ever since I was young. It's also an event which I have somewhat of a personal connection to, as I have an aunt and uncle who work and live in America. My uncle in particular was working in a building nearby the World Trade Center, and although he didn't witness the planes crashing into the towers, he was witness when the towers collapsed and was almost caught up in the dust smoke, although he hid himself inside the building soon after, so he didn't really get that badly affected. My aunt, on the other hand, was witness to the events but was quite a distance away. So with that personal connection, I have a bit of interest when it comes to the fact that there is lost media surrounding 9/11. This lost media in particular is quite grisly, and as I put on at the beginning of this video, that there is going to be quite a lot of gory details regarding some of the videos, especially the jumper videos, as a lot of them are, how do I put it, very grisly. Very, very grisly, and I will be using some images which might also be quite gruesome to some people, but remember, this is all part of history. This is stuff that has been publicly available ever since, well, whatever date they were publicly available. And another thing is, I won't be putting any background music in, so if there is background noise as I'm doing these recordings, I'm afraid you're just going to have to listen to it. So without further ado, let's have a look at some of the lost 9/11 media. In 2006, during the first years of YouTube, a shock video circulated the internet called lolsuperman, which had a man walk up some steps to the Plaza of the World Trade Center, recording debris and bodies, as well as perhaps two jumpers landing near the cameraman. The video has been remembered by a lot of people, but the footage has never resurfaced, and it's perhaps the most infamous of the lost 9/11 media. There was a time this image on screen that you can see was thought to be a screenshot or a thumbnail of the video, but as it turns out, from some investigation, it's actually from a Chinese holiday video. Not only that, but footage of this video could in fact be something completely different. You know, the Mandela effect, where people remember something, but it's actually completely different to what it actually is, as there is different footage of a man walking around the World Trade Center which has eerie happy music playing in the background from presumably the mall downstairs or around the Plaza area. Of course, that footage does exist and has been publicly available for a long time. Another one is the rather infamous Rochebrook footage, which shows from afar the jumpers landing and impacting the ground. And of course, the third possible footage could be the lamppost video, where a jumper visibly lands and essentially turns into red mist, similar to the description of lolsuperman, where supposedly the jumpers, after impacting, turned into red mist of blood. Perhaps people have mistaken these other bits of footage as lolsuperman and just merged them into one, who knows. However, the FBI and the 9/11 Memorial both confirm that there is footage from the World Trade Center around the Plaza that does exist, and most likely may even show the bodies and or close-ups of jumpers. Even famed German director Werner Herzog confirms that there is indeed footage landing in front of a camera from 9/11 that exists, although in the interview where he mentions this, he states that that footage should never be released. So why does the Plaza jumper footage seem missing, despite initially being seen on the internet around 2006, with many people having very similar accounts of how the footage plays out? Well, for one thing, in the FBI email regarding this particular footage, they claim that it cannot be released as it's part of an ongoing investigation. So perhaps there is another reason why this footage just somehow was on the internet in 2006. Perhaps someone managed to get it, so perhaps it was a part of another compilation of videos or another bit of footage. Perhaps even someone may have leaked it by accident or on purpose. Regardless, the FBI claim that the reason why the footage cannot be released is because it's a part of an ongoing investigation, which sort of makes sense if you think about the onboard calls or the calls from the World Trade Center themselves, which wasn't released until 2006 as a result of an investigation and a trial. After the trial, the audio was publicly released and everyone could listen to it. So perhaps this is for an ongoing trial or trial at some other point. Who knows? People searching for Lol Superman have discovered in a news report of the attacks that there are two men in white shirts walking up the steps to the Plaza, similar to how the Lol Superman video plays out. These are perhaps the two men in the Lol Superman video, the two men who recorded it. Whoever they are, no one really knows. Strangely, gore sites seem to not even have the footage, despite this being something that they would have. Ogrish, for example, definitely had a lot of 9/11 jumper videos, but even they didn't have this footage for some reason. However, upon looking on the web archive, you can see several jumper videos from around 2009, 2010, and one such video, as I found during my research, is literally just entitled Superman. However, the video has no thumbnail and is 5 seconds long and was currently taken down for violating services. As a result, the video is unable to be watched. Inside the carport is a partially found lost media featuring filming from within the First World Trade Center, where a jumper lands on the glass canopy, smashing the glass upon impact. The reason this is partially lost is because we do actually have some footage already, thanks to the French filmmaker Jules Nodal, who is perhaps infamous for being with the firefighters on the ground and recording the events unfold. This footage he filmed never actually made it into the 2002 9/11 documentary, as noted by the not for production labels on the actual footage, but it does show, although very poorly, a jumper landing on the glass canopy, although it is very hard to define. However, the official description of this particular footage is supposedly up close and shows the body slamming through the glass as well as landing on the top. There's also supposedly more than one angle from this particular footage, meaning that more than one person was filming. We know that Jules captured up close the carnage on the canopy, and there is in fact a very gruesome image which I'll show on screen where you can, if you look closely, see bodies visible. It is highly likely that the footage is by Jules himself. However, it was never released due to how gory it was, and likely is, and wouldn't be presentable for public viewing. In fact, in the 2002 documentary itself, he even states he recorded a person who was badly burnt being taken away. He didn't include the footage, and this was because he quoted, "Nobody should ever have to look at that." Perhaps this is a similar reason to what the Inside the Carport video showed. In this image, you can see one of the victims trapped above the impact zone with a camera. Believe it or not, the FBI have confirmed in a 2003 article that footage from a victim from above the impact zone managed to survive and depict footage from above the impact zone prior to collapse. It's been presumed by a lot of people that this man right here in this image is the man whose footage survived. Some may be asking how a camera with either cassette tape or card managed to survive the fires and the collapse. Well, many things did in fact surprisingly survive such circumstances. For example, passports, badges, and human remains such as teeth survived not only the plane crashes, the burning, but also the collapse. Therefore, a camera was able to survive, and if the FBI say that this footage exists, then most likely this footage does exist. To give some context, recently a man captured his and fellow passengers' deaths this year in a Nepal plane crash on an iPhone, which also showed the burning aftermath afterwards. This is another partially lost footage, again showing jumpers landing and hitting the carport, but this time filmed from a building nearby. The footage was around on YouTube in 2010, but seemingly went missing. There's plenty of footage from nearby, and in one particular footage released, it's from the same angle showing the carport as described by the description of this lost footage, and even shows jumpers but none landing, whereas skylight.mov featured the impact reportedly. It is, of course, highly possible that people might be confusing the skylight footage that is publicly available and the infamous Rushbook recording together, mixing the two up, as the Rushbook recording does in fact show a jumper landing on the stage, and maybe perhaps people were mistaking these two footages and thinking they're the same. Once again, the Mandela effect in effect. Like Lol Superman, this video was reportedly a shock video that depicts close-ups of jumpers landing near to the cameraman who is walking across the plaza. In the video, 2 jumpers land near the cameraman who is supposedly muttering to himself, and the camera itself is shaking rapidly. The footage does not last very long, but there's not really much else known about this video, and it's highly possible that this could just be Lol Superman, just under a different title. Falling Angels is perhaps the most, or the least informed of the missing 9/11 footage. If you have been to the 9/11 museum like I have, then you know that there are more footage of the Pentagon getting hit. We all know the CCTV footage, but there is at least 3 other cameras that caught the impact. One is taken from a fast food restaurant, I believe a McDonald's car park. Another shows the plane from behind lowering and impacting the Pentagon. And the third, which unfortunately I don't really remember all that much, but I believe could have been from the White House itself, shows clearly the plane impacting the Pentagon. Why this footage doesn't get publicly released is very strange in my opinion. The footage is in sort of a weird limbo, as technically it is available to see if you pay to go to see the 9/11 museum and witness the footage yourself, but for some reason it's just not publicly available. In conclusion, there is a lot of debate over whether this lost footage should ever see the light of day, as a lot of it is incredibly gruesome and a lot of it could be very harrowing. But at the same time, we have calls from within the tower. There's one in particular that I can always remember where it ends with the man screaming, "Oh God, no," as the tower collapses, which in my opinion is far more horrifying than any of the other clips that we have seen from 9/11. So why are they missing? As Werner Herzog has said, some footage doesn't deserve to see the light of day, it just shouldn't be shown. However, it should also be noted when he did that interview, he later did another interview where he said that footage such as that, or in this case as he filmed a movie called Grizzly, he said that footage should of course see the light of day. You should never destroy evidence or history. And really, that's where I stand personally. I think history is important. I believe people should have the freedom to see images from a historic event, especially as it's in the public interest. Now, obviously, not everyone's going to want to see some of this footage. I mean, Lol Superman, for example, is definitely not something that I don't believe many people will want to see. But then again, we have the Rossbrook footage, which shows a very grisly aftermath of jumpers. In my opinion, on a historic perspective, I believe it should be publicly released. It's in the interest of the public and freedom of information, but at the same time, it's something that should be given a big warning, as not many people want to see it. And I can understand why some people don't want this footage to ever be released. There are some who find it too offensive to be released due to the victims, but at the same time, we see plenty of footage of a plane impacting the buildings, and, well, what about the victims on there? Isn't that too offensive? I can understand some of the perspectives. Like I said, I can understand perfectly. And when it comes to this lost media, it is a little bit iffy because, of course, there are some people, and most likely a lot of people, including victims' families, who don't want this to be released. And so you sort of have to respect their wishes. I sort of can see this for the filming man video, the man who was in the or above the impact zone. I can understand if the victim's family, who may have received that footage and may have received it by the investigators, I'm sure they probably have no need to release said footage, especially if it is very grisly. But at the same time, you then also have the calls which were publicly released. So it's a bit of a weird limbo. The one which I find perhaps the strangest of them all is the Pentagon. Why this footage is locked away and never allowed to be seen is very peculiar, especially because, obviously conspiracy theorists will believe that there's a missile that hit the Pentagon. One, if you've seen this footage, then it shows very clearly it's a plane. So why hide this footage? Surely that would, clear up a few of the conspiracy theorists. Well, surely that would silence them a bit. It's evidence, and plus it's of the historic event. Perhaps it's because of military reasons, perhaps. I don't actually know. The Pentagon missing footage is the one that I always think is the strangest to be kept away, especially if we have one CCTV footage which isn't very good, all things considered, compared to the others. I don't know. That one I do believe should be 100% released. I don't see any reason why, other than potentially militaristic reasons, obviously. So without further ado, I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe you probably didn't. I'm unlikely to do anything as disturbing or as dark as this subject, but I hope maybe this video might help you understand some of the lost media regarding the historic event of 9/11. Maybe it didn't. I'll see you next time.